Is it running? Okay, good. Hello everybody. Today we are going to review the series Daredevil. So this is one that I'd started, oh god, I don't know, watching how many times, and finally made it to the end this time, just because, I don't know, it just seems like it was always a good series to me. It's just one of those ones that I never pursued to the end, I guess, for whatever reason. I don't know whether other shows just piqued my interest more, and I just kind of put this one to the back burner for a while, and now that I'm doing this channel, I'm glad that I finally followed through and watched it to the end. Just because these series are actually really good, despite them not being in the, MCU. I actually like these a little bit better because they can be a little bit darker, and it doesn't matter. I feel like the ones in the MCU are a little bit more PG, and these ones are definitely more like, I don't know. Even though the rating says 14A, I would say this could definitely be a restricted show for sure. There are certain scenes in this that, yeah, it's definitely up there in rating, that's for sure. And I was a little snacky during this video, so I grabbed some popcorn. Anyhow, let's get into the storyline, I guess. I like to name the actors, though. But we'll do that as we go because it will kind of actually work better, I think. So we are first introduced to... Were we introduced to Foggy and Matt Murdock first, or were we introduced to Karen? God, it's been so... yeah. With these series, right, it takes a while to remember. But anyhow, it was around the same time that we're introduced to all these characters, right? Because Foggy and Matt become Karen's lawyers in her case of killing her, I believe, was it her boyfriend, husband? Somebody she just met? I believe it was somebody she just met. Or that was the story she went with at the beginning. I can't remember how anyway, obviously she gets off scot-free because she becomes a very important part of the show as the show progresses. And I can't remember exactly what episode we were introduced to the character of Wilson Fisk, but we don't really know that much about him in the very beginning. And obviously we can't find out much about him because his name seems to be cleared from all records. And his best friend was named Wesley. And Wesley basically took care of all his affairs. And so they are in dealings with the Russians. I don't know whether they were the Chinese. I guess, yeah, they weren't Korean. What was I thinking? And there was one other group. Or was there? Or was the Chinese kind of mixed in with this? There's a character named Nobu in the show, and I think they were kind of mixed in with that as well. With the Chinese anyway, or maybe he was his own ruler. I'm not really sure how that worked, because I believe Madame Gao was the leader of the Chinese, and Nobu was one of her highest praised warriors, if I'm remembering that correctly. Anyhow, so the Russians are the ones who kind of go about things their own way and don't really like to take orders from, and at the time, we know who Wilson Fisk is, I guess, in a sense. But Wesley always refers to him as his employer, because I guess they're not really supposed to speak his name so that his name doesn't get out into the press or anything, and so that nothing can come back to him on basically what he's doing, obviously underground in the criminal empire, right? So yeah. So it just seems as the show progresses that no matter what Matt, Karen, and Foggy do, Wilson Fisk is always just like leaps and bounds ahead of them. I guess he's a very smart person, and we find out very early in the show that he likes. He's a very broken person though too, because he did kill his father when he was a child. His mother covered it up, and that was one of the things in one of the episodes, was that because he's so broken, he only sees the child in himself, I guess, because his reflection in the mirror was him standing there with the hammer. So he doesn't believe when he meets this Vanessa character that he actually deserves her, which I find kind of odd. I guess he's just a very keep to himself kind of man. He doesn't really let anybody in, but then when he finds her, he realizes that he actually could love somebody, because he does say that near the end of the show, that that was one of the things that he was worried about, was could he actually, was it a trick? Was it a trick being played out of his mind that he was actually in love with somebody? And did he actually deserve this woman? And that, I guess, scared him in a way. But he truly did love Vanessa. And I don't want to get too much more into that part, because I really want to break down the last episode. So yeah, the first season was basically about getting Karen off scot-free, and then obviously dealing with the Russians and Nobu and all of those guys. And at was it in the second season or in the first season where Daredevil finally realizes that Nobu can't be killed based on some ancient prophecy, I guess? It was all kind of very odd. I did like the he didn't wear a suit in the first season. It was just like some sort of like random getup that he found on the internet. And then when he finally does get a suit built, oh my god. And who was it that built the suit for him? Oh god. We might have to scroll a little ways here. Melvin Potter, who was played by Matt Gerald, was he wasn't really I'd almost say he's like a third party character, but he was kind of an asset to the show for sure, at least for Daredevil, because he does build Daredevil suits and weapons. And I'm sure if Fisk had found out that he was working for Daredevil, he probably would have had him and the woman that Betsy, the woman that Melvin was with, killed for sure. But I don't think he ever actually discovers that, and Daredevil keeps Melvin safe in his own sense, and also tells Betsy to leave so that she can be safe too. So that, I guess, when Melvin gets out of prison or wherever he might have been taken by the police, that at least... Oh god, I'm choking. Ooh, that was close. That at least they will be able to see one another again, right? So yeah, the getup he had in the very first season was this black mask that only covered down to like his mouth, which it's kind of odd because he did change his voice a little bit, like, to make it, I guess, raspier, sort of like the Batman theme in a sense. I don't know why they never touched, because if I'm remembering correctly, the Daredevil from the movie way back in, what was it, 2003, I think I just saw when I looked up Daredevil, he could see using sonar, and he could see in the rain. Now, there were scenes in the rain, and there were definitely scenes where there was like flashing images and stuff, but I don't understand why they never put any like sonar device in the suit. That would have been something cool that they probably should have done, because it would have made sense. Now, we know that Daredevil is blind, but he can see in certain aspects like that. Like when there's something, like a flashing image or something, he can see. In this one, it was kind of odd, because he can't see... like a normal human being, but it's kind of like blurred image, like shades of red and orange. So I guess his description of it was like a world on fire. So he knows what everybody looks like, but he mainly goes off of his other senses, I guess, like smell and sound and like touch and stuff, because obviously those other senses are heightened. So he can hear stuff that a whole bunch of other people can't hear. And the reason that he went blind as a kid was because he was saving somebody from an accident, or somebody who was about to get hit, and then he ended up getting this chemical spill in his eyes, and yeah, went legally blind. They did give a lot of backstory to him as a child. His father was a boxer, and I guess his father knew that he was probably going to end up dying doing the boxing game, because I don't know who he owed money to or who owned him. But yeah, he was supposed to take a flop in I believe it was going to be probably his final fight or his biggest payout, and he decided that not to change the outcome, put all the money on him for TKO in I don't know what round. But anyway, when he's trying to leave quickly, he ends up getting shot by either whoever was talking to him in the gym or some gangster that was sent to kill him. And obviously they were already there ready to kill him if he went against his word, right? So unfortunately, Matt didn't have the best childhood, that's for sure. He was basically raised by the church, but he always felt that he had some of the devil in him, which I guess makes kind of sense, because then he became what he felt he had inside of him. In the second season, I suppose, was kind of the jump there. And one of the best introductions in the second season was, and I believe this was actually this very first introduction we ever got to the Punisher. And John Burtnall playing the Punisher was one of the best things that could have ever happened. And I will be reviewing that series as well down the road. It might not come until September, but that's for another video. So, yeah, that was one of the probably bloodiest seasons, obviously, because you've got him fighting his war, Daredevil fighting his war against Wilson Fisk now, trying to take out, what was it? The Hand? Yes, I actually did remember that. Trying to take out the Hand, and his mentor there, Stick, gets into the show too in quite a serious way, and actually ends up killing Nobu in the end. He's the one that ends up killing Nobu, because he's trying to stop them from creating this weapon called the Black Sky. So there's the Hand and the Chaste, and I guess the Chaste are the good guys, and he tells a story about how when he was a kid, he ended up killing a whole bunch of these people, and obviously by that point Daredevil or Matt doesn't really want to believe him. I can't remember who Stick was played by, but he might be a ways back here. You would think that he would... Oh, Scott Glenn played Stick. He wasn't in the show for very long, I don't think. Just basically, he kind of came in and out of certain episodes. And Elektra was another part of the show, even though she wasn't in it for very long. She was kind of there for a few episodes, and she was played by Elodie Young. I hope I'm getting that right. So anyhow, then we go into the third season, and the one thing that I really didn't like, and I don't know why they did it, was Daredevil getting rid of his suit. It really made no sense. However, well, just before I get into that, I jumped a little bit too far. So, yeah, the Punisher, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Punisher in this series. Yeah, so obviously I went over, like, the war with between Daredevil and Stick and Elektra, and the Hand and the Black Sky. Unfortunately, Elektra, I guess, was the Black Sky, so that was kind of a twist of events. And she gets killed and then somehow resurrected. And yeah, right at the beginning of the third season, it shows like a... Now, I'm not really sure what happened, because it just shows him being like thrown out of the building in the suit, and that's when he decides to give it up, which I find kind of weird. I wish they had touched a little bit more on how Elektra was actually re-resurrected. Kind of odd, but anyhow. Yeah. Anyway, the Punisher in season 2. He basically wipes out the entire Irish mob due to the fact that they were one of the gangs that was there when his family was killed. And you find out quite an interesting thing about that. The DA that was in control of that was actually trying to get this drug lord to show up there, and he didn't. And then obviously when all three gangs showed up, they ended up shooting one another. Now I can't remember all three gangs, but I know that the Irish were the main one in this storyline at least, that he's trying to take out. There was also the biker gang. What were they called? Oh god, was it the Dogs of Hell? It might have been the Dogs of Hell. They're in Hell's Kitchen. That's where this all takes place. I think it was the Dogs of Hell. Dogs of Hell or Hounds of Hell. I can't quite remember. It was one of the two, I believe. Don't quote me on that, because I could be wrong. But anyhow, he takes out those two groups. There was a third group. Now, was it the Chinese? Was the third group? It might have been. So I guess, in a way, their stories kind of came together at the end, because if it was the Chinese, that would make sense as to why the Punisher was there helping Daredevil in the very end when he has his final fight with Nobu. That actually does make sense, hey? I think I might be right on that. I'm not 100% sure whether the Chinese was a third group or not, but I know for sure that the biker group and the Irish mob were definitely there. It might have even been the Russians too, now that I'm thinking of it. Anyhow, yeah, the prison scene where the Punisher goes to take out the guy who's thinks he owns the prison. Obviously, Wilson Fisk is in there now, so right, he's going to start taking control of everything slowly from the inside out, because that's what Wilson Fisk does. He plays very smartly. So he uses the Punisher as his weapon. When the Punisher could have easily pleaded not guilty to his crimes, he decides to plead guilty just so he can go in there and take out that guy. And I believe he was the leader of one of the drug groups, or he might have actually been the guy they were looking for originally. I can't remember quite how he tied into that show or that storyline. I just know that he was definitely a very higher up power in that whole storyline for the Punisher. And I can't remember his name, so I don't think it's going to help me very much, because he was only in the show for like a very few episodes, so I don't even know if I could find him on here. I doubt that I am going to be able to, unfortunately. Which kind of sucks, because, yeah. But that's okay if I can't. Not a big deal. There were so many people in this show, right? Like, some people are just going to be impossible to find, probably. Oh, William Forsythe. Dutton, I believe. Yeah, and because Wilson Fisk wanted Dutton dead, he used the Punisher as his own weapon. So there you go. I was able to find that out. He was quite a ways back there, though. I had to scroll. So anyway, right. So then we go into the third season. Now, I think we can actually talk about that. Oh, and I guess the healer for Matt if I can remember who played her. The doctor. Oh, Rosario Darson. Why do I want to keep saying Darson? Rosario Dawson played Claire Temple, and she was the doctor who always helped Daredevil get healed in the first season, I think. I think that's all she was there for. She might have been there for a little bit of the second season. But then she ends up leaving. And I don't think we ever see her again after that. No, we don't. Okay, so now getting into the third season. So we're introduced. So Wilson Fisk ends up getting out of prison in this season based on the fact that the FBI is investigating him, and we have this Agent Deem, who was played by... Where is he? You would think he'd be a little farther up in the list. Agent Nadeem, where are you? Holy. Oh, huh. Well, I really can't find him. You would think he would be closer to the... Interesting. Anyway. I guess it's... Oh, no, there he is. Jay Ali played Ray Nadeem. And I guess his whole thing is that he wants to prove to his family that he can become a better person and agent and earn enough money to provide for his family. But that definitely comes at a price for him, I would say. And also we're introduced to this character, Agent Poindexter. And he should be right here somewhere too. And he was played by Wilson Bethel. He goes by Dex. And if I'm thinking properly, there was a character named Bullseye in the movie, was there not? And I swear to God, that's who he was supposed to represent. Now, I might be wrong, which I'm actually kind of shocked that after they finally named Wilson Fisk Kingpin, because he is able to totally infiltrate the FBI and have them in his back pocket, because he gets dirt on literally everybody. And I mean from, like, top tier all the way down to Agent Nadeem and Poindexter. It's just crazy, like, what this guy is able to do in this show. He ends up killing Poindexter's love interest, Julie. Why he did that, I don't know. Because I think he probably could have worked into Poindexter's mind regardless of doing that. So it really made no sense to kill her, but I guess that's how Wilson Fisk works. I guess he thought if Poindexter was focused on Julie that he wouldn't be able to guide him in the right direction to drive him over the edge. I do, however, like Wilson Fisk's direction by using Poindexter as Daredevil to make him go out and kill everybody, and then blame it on the actual Daredevil, so that everybody thought Daredevil was this huge killer, to take the attention away from Wilson Fisk and what he'd done previously. It's just crazy that people, like, totally forgot how much of a monster Wilson Fisk was, and totally turned their energy towards Daredevil, and like, where's Daredevil? We gotta find Daredevil, and all this, and just let Wilson Fisk basically run the FBI. Like, oh, it's just crazy. So, Wilson Fisk is trying to kill Karen, because Karen probably does something she shouldn't have ever done, and goes to meet with him, and that was a mistake, because she ends up telling Wilson that she was the one that killed Wesley. And obviously, I don't think she would have probably made it out of that room if she'd grabbed the gun and killed him. I don't know why Wesley thought it was a smart idea to put a loaded gun on the table in the first place anyway, when he takes her to this place. But, hey, he did, for whatever reason. I was actually kind of shocked by that scene, because I couldn't believe that he actually did that. But he did, for whatever reason. So it kind of seems that Now Wilson Fisk's right-hand man is this character named Felix Manning, played by Joe Jones. And Karen and him do have a run-in at a hotel because I guess she's trying to get information out of him on Fisk, and obviously he's not going to give it up. And his response to her trying to antagonize him is her parents' address. And he basically says, I don't make problems. I don't solve problems, I make them disappear. So, yeah, if that were me sitting across from that guy, I probably would have just run right out of the room, like, and fled to a different... Yep, I would have been just gone. Like, not even a second thought, because that would have just made me go, okay, this guy clearly knows everything about my life. I would have been a little nervous. So, yeah, he is a very obviously scary gentleman and not somebody you would want to mess with, because he basically just takes out all Wilson Fisk's trash. Hope I said that properly. And by trash, he does all the dirty work for Wilson Fisk, like the killings and so on and so forth. Obviously, other than what he gets Poindexter to do, Felix takes care of the rest of it. So Wilson is able to get Vanessa back in this season, which was, in the end, probably not a good thing for him, because she seems distant, and then when she gets involved, things get way out of hand, because Daredevil is able to find where Wilson has been stashing the bodies, and gets Poindexter to turn on him, and I don't really know why he wouldn't have just let Poindexter or Dex kill him, because it would have just made it easier for Matt in the end anyway, because then it would have... Yeah, I guess he kind of created a weapon, but in a sense, but also it wouldn't have been him doing it, right? So I guess he would have had some sort of relief, but at the same time wouldn't have had the grief of actually doing it himself. He almost does, but then Vanessa asks or pleads with him not to, so he stops, because he easily could have... He used these, like, tie ropes as weapons, like, around his fist, instead of just... Because I guess he didn't have the suit right in the third season, which I found very weird. He went back to the whole, like, just plain old black getup, which didn't make any sense, because he could have made, like, at least a body armor or something to go with that, but he had, like, it was basically just like a regular everyday clothing suit with like a little bit of padding. It didn't make any sense as to why he didn't choose something different, at least suit-wise, for the third season. If he didn't like the devil suit, he could have at least had like a helmet or something, and like just a black suit would have been cool. But hey, I didn't direct the show. I guess it was sort of a come full circle type thing, because he felt like he was becoming more Daredevil in the second season going into the third, and I guess now he was supposed to be Daredevil turning back into his normal self, Matt, because I guess he meets with Foggy once and says that he's left Matt Murdock behind. He's just Daredevil now. So I guess at the very end of the show, he does say that he's just going to return to being Matt Murdock. And in the very final episode, it was quite violent, actually. Obviously, the fight between Dex in the Daredevil suit and Daredevil himself, and Wilson Fisk trying to protect Vanessa. So he does agree to Daredevil's terms in the end, because Wilson Fisk was just going to let himself die. I guess that's maybe the only way he thought Vanessa would actually be safe. But then when Vanessa tells him to stop, he says, Daredevil tells him, you're going to go back to jail, because if you don't, and if you try anything inside jail, I'll hunt your wife down. So Wilson Fisk agrees to those terms and goes back to jail. And at the end, it was kind of weird, because it shows these two surgeons working on Poindexter, and I'm not really sure were working on spine, because Wilson Fisk literally broke this guy in half, like just picks him up and runs him into a wall, and you can just hear the crack of his back. So he was probably paralyzed. And I guess they were doing work on his spine, and they're saying that it wasn't going to work, but the patient knew the risks. So I'm kind of interested as to whether we ever see Poindexter again later on in one of these shows, because I haven't seen the Defenders show yet, or I didn't get very far into it. I think I only watched a couple episodes. So I'm hoping that maybe he's in that one as one of the enemies, because that would be kind of cool. And there is mention of Jessica Jones in the Daredevil show, which is kind of confusing, because she never had any cameo in the show. But maybe Daredevil has a cameo in just the Jessica Jones show, because I can't remember what connection she had, but one of the women that was in that show met with Foggy at one point when he was, I guess, switching ferns when him and Matt were having their problems. So yeah, I think I pretty much covered everything that I possibly could. Oh, and Agent Nadeem unfortunately dies, even though he gave his, he testified in court against Wilson Fisk, but then Wilson Fisk blocked that somehow. So then he ended up recording this video on his phone, and that got leaked. And that's where things kind of went south for Wilson Fisk, obviously. And clearly now that he had Dex after him too, right? So, what else was I going to say there? Oh yeah, it was Dex that kills Agent Nadeem too. And I guess Nadeem knew that he was going to die, but now that he had his family safe, that was all that mattered. Now that Sammy was his son, and who was his wife? What was his wife's name? Seema. Yeah, okay. And I don't know if I can even pronounce her name, but Sunita Deshpande? That might be right. I hate when I don't really know how to pronounce the name and I might end up butchering it, but anyhow, so we are going to talk about, another character I guess that I didn't mention was Ben Urich, who helped Karen on her path in the very beginning too, to become a reporter herself, because after the whole Foggy and Matt kind of break up, she goes her own way. And follows in his footsteps. Unfortunately, he dies at the hands of Wilson Fisk too, after him and Karen go to see Wilson Fisk's mother, because I guess that was the most private part of his life, because she was supposed to be dead. But clearly she wasn't. So yeah. And in the very first season, Madame Gao and one of the other guys, Leland Owsley, played by Bob Gunton, tried to get Vanessa killed, and that clearly doesn't go well for them, because I believe Wilson Fisk basically just takes out every other enterprise before he goes back underground. Or goes to jail, sorry. Prison, really. So anyway, what else was I saying there before I got into that? Oh yeah, so let me just name the actors too. So Charlie Cox was the one who played Matt Murdock in Daredevil. Vincent D. Onfrio, I'm going to say, played Wilson Fisk. Deborah Ann Wall played Karen Page. And Eldon Henson played Foggy Nelson. And I guess Royce Johnson, who played Brett Mahoney, who ended up becoming Sergeant of the NYPD, was a very important character too, because he helps with Daredevil's, he gets help from Daredevil, and obviously becomes kind of closer with Foggy, even though they didn't get along all the time, but he gets mixed up in quite a bit of it too. But yeah, I don't want to talk too much, because I feel like I might be ruining some of the story if I talk about what happens with him, because even though he was a secondary character, he was important. Also, Mitchell Ellison, who was Karen Page's boss and Ben's boss for a while, was an important character too, because even though he's a secondary character, he definitely pushed them both to do their best work. Because he knew they weren't going to stop, so he kind of gave them like a tough love kind of thing. So he was a good character to have around as well. But yeah, I think that's all that I had to touch on. Was it? Oh yeah, the assassination of Vanessa. That was one thing that I missed, but I did talk about it finally. So yes, I've been talking for 35 minutes now, so that's crazy. So let's give a rating on this show. I was really enjoying the show up until the third season when they got rid of the suit completely, because I wish they had have changed something about that. So I was kind of at like a 9 out of 10, but I think I'm going to have to bump it down to an 8 just because of that. I don't really know if this is going to be my favorite show out of all of them. I think probably, I know I'm a little biased because I really love The Punisher, so I think that might be my favorite series out of all of them. But I haven't really watched enough of Jessica Jones, and I haven't really watched enough of Iron Fist or, what's the other one? Luke Cage, to really know if I really like those shows enough or not. So I guess we'll see, but right now I'm going to say this is probably second, just because The Punisher is in the show, and I don't know if he makes any appearances in any of the other ones, so I guess we'll see. But yeah, I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10, just based on that. And I guess I will see you guys in the next one. This is going to be a long video, but hopefully you guys enjoy, and bye-bye for now.